So today, let's review what Wall Street thought about the Cybertruck. We're going to watch video and read reports from 5 different Wall Street analysts. Adam Jonas from Morgan Stanley, Gene Munster from Deepwater Asset Management, Dan Ives from Wedbush, Canaccord's George Gianenriquez, and Bradley Tusk from Tusk Ventures. Surprisingly, only a few were overtly negative. Most of them are very positive. Today, we have Jeff Lutz with us. He can help evaluate these comments from these analysts. He's often done this. He's got a much better view. Many of us retail investors have a better view than these analysts, but surprisingly, most of them are actually pretty positive. Welcome, Jeff.
Great to be with you, Herbert.
As many of you guys know, Jeff is a high-level chief C-level executive officer for supply chain and QA. He's worked at multiple Fortune 100 companies like Google, Lenovo, and Motorola. Thank you very much again, Jeff. So let's start with Morgan Stanley's note that they just produced a few days ago, right after the Cybertruck event. And they basically said, which is very shocking, this is like how they view it, they think it's an avant-garde art truck. Okay? But worth putting into perspective, they only forecast 50 deliveries in 2023, followed by 30,000 units in 24, 78,000 in 25. We already had a previous show where we talked about how low that is. Their pricing is 90,000, falls to 84,000 by 2024, so at least they know that it's going to fall down. But they think that the Cybertruck will be supplemented by a range of Rivian-looking pickups. So they still don't believe that this design was manufacturing first. They just think it's a beautiful design, but that eventually Tesla's going to need to make legacy kind of looking design. And then they think that the Cybertruck will account for less than 5% of Tesla's revenues, closer to 0% of profit. A part of Tesla's brand allure and engineering philosophy involves following through on various moonshot projects that intend to push the collective engineering team to tackle audacious, difficult projects with the intention of improving more mainstream products over time. What's your reaction to this note?
Yeah, I think it's a little aggressive to the downside. I'm not entirely sure. Again, when analysts put these types of notes out, what's the, forget about this year and is it 50 or 100 or whatever, 500 deliveries this year, more of next year. When you say you're at 30,000, are you demand limited? Are there, meaning Tesla could produce 100,000 next year, but they're only going to sell 30, or is it supply limited? I believe next year will be supply limited, and I have a much higher number than the 30,000, and I believe it'll be a supply limited story until they get the product to scale. And as they're getting the product to scale, they're going to be able to take the COGS down and therefore take pricing down. But as we looked at in an earlier video, Herbert, Tesla's not at a price disadvantage relative to either ICE vehicles or other EV trucks. And remember, Tesla's at time equals 0 in terms of launching their product. And these other trucks, if it's the Raptor, has been in market for years, or if it's the Rivian and the F-150E, they've been in market for basically almost 2 years. So they're at time equal 20-24 months. So, and they're at those prices today, and where Tesla's actually launching. So I think it's a little bit, I don't think analysts are looking at, this is where I think analysts are kind of like literally taking a number, plugging in a spread. Oh, the price is going to be here. Well, then there's this many people that buy trucks, or, at this point in time. And again, this is what makes a market. People agree and disagree. They're more bullish, less bullish on things. Like I said, I don't think Tesla's doing 200,000 trucks in 2024. I think they're going to be supply limited coming up the curve. But the number 30,000 is too low. The following year, 70,000, way too low. But that's where he is. That's where he is. I think there's a number of reasons to say that won't be the case, including the million people that plunked down, million plus people that have plunked down reservations for the product.
Yeah, what's even weird is continuing the note. He says that he thinks that the Cybertruck is going to be limited, like a Ferrari, like the Aston Martin. They're just really there for kind of like beautiful car, but they're not going to produce it at scale. So he goes, okay, they do agree that they're going to. It's so Cybertruck is going to be a difficult product to manufacture at scale, will not be profitable sometime. Now they do expect Cybertruck to be made in significant volume. Yes, you will see this at tailgates and soccer practice drop-offs, but we believe that the company may decide to purposely limit series production to maintain scarcity while focusing company resources on more profitable products. They really think this is just a niche offering, just like the Aston Martin, the Ferrari Daytona. The collectors can find bottles of Tesla, Aquila, or the Boring Company. Oh my gosh. That's your...
Yeah, there's a reason. There's a factual reason why this is not true. And I'm surprised Adam missed this, which is if Tesla was doing an art truck, what Tesla would have done is Tesla would have done like whatever was minimum viable. We call this a minimum viable product, usually the first prototype, but they would have done the minimum viable output product to get that art truck. So the minimum on crash tests. They wouldn't have put a 48 volt architecture and they would have put a 12 volt architecture. And there's no reason, if you're doing an art thing at a very low volume, why would you spend all those engineering resources and time to redesign the electrical architecture? You wouldn't do that. You would go with 12 volt. You wouldn't, there's a number of things you wouldn't have done that Tesla did with this product. So Tesla is designing this to be, they're unsure. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being unsure of things, but when you're, installing, and you've already installed 125,000 units of capacity, and you're taking that to 250K announced, and you're basically going to do, when they're at 250, they're going to be doing triple the R1T and F-150E already. So I think they'll do triple, in the next, year or plus already. So that's where the note doesn't factually align with, like, why would Tesla have made these decisions to do all these brand new innovations if this was literally just kind of a showpiece product versus something that they would be more mainstream. Now, 250K when Tesla's base next year is probably going to be 2.2 to 2.4, depending on who you talk to. It's 10% of their volume in terms of their peak capacity on the truck versus where they're going to be at, and they're getting the 5 million maybe in a couple of years. So yeah, this isn't going to occupy 20, 30, 40% of Tesla's volume. That's not what the product was meant to be, but it's certainly not this thing that's going to be tens of thousands of units in the corner. I think Tesla wouldn't have done what they did on the inside of that product if that were the case.
Let's watch a few more analysts to share what they're doing. We're going to hear from Gene Munster, Deepwater Asset Management, from Dan Ives, from Wedbush. So this is Gene Munster saying that he's actually, I thought that he was fairly fair. He thinks that it's priced 20-25 higher than he expected. That's not likely the long-term price. So at least he knows that. They will have to lower it to gain share. Bottom line, but this will be a side story for investors till 2025 or 2026. And then we've got Dan Ives. So let's watch that video of the two of them and see what they're saying.
Talk about the Cybertruck and bring in our leadoff panel on set. Here we got Wedbush Securities Managing Director, longtime Tesla bull, Dan Ives, and Deepwater Asset Management Managing Partner, Gene Munster. Dan, big deal. We've been waiting for years, right? And as Tom Petty said, the waiting is the hardest part. It's here now. But how many of these can they actually deliver?
Look, it's 4 years in the making. I think I view it as a historical moment for Musk and Tesla in terms of the Cybertruck launch. I think the big thing is really when it gets to scale. 2025, 2 to 250,000 units per year. Look, you look at reservations right now. You have call it 2 million. Let's say conversion we think could be about 40%. This does move the needle. Now, producing.
Well, that's only 800,000.
Now, producing, you probably next year 40 to 50,000 in terms of what they could produce. But in my opinion, this does move the needle, and I think it's just another flex to muscle moment for Musk and Tesla.
Yeah, Gene, is it material to the company and to the stock, or is it primarily just a really cool marketing vehicle, for lack of a better term?
So I'm optimistic about Tesla, and I think I'm realistic that this is not going to move the needle for the next couple of years, and agree with Dan that this has big potential, but really this is going to be a sideshow. And I think Phil's setup was spot on as far as the market that this is going to address, that 20% of the market. And that kind of puts in the category of an S or X. That's 5% of their total deliveries. And so there's a massive opportunity here. Make no doubt about it, but they got to get that price down. And I think the prices that we saw today were 25% higher than I was expecting. That's a big deal. They're $10,000 more per vehicle for a comparable, if you want to call it comparable, F-150 Lightning. 10,000 is a lot of money. So this really isn't going to move the needle for the next couple of years. When they bring the price down and they start to, I think, go after the what I think will be a bigger part of the market, 26. Dan, you said 250,000 in 25. That was my number yesterday. Now that's my number for 26.
Jeff, what did you take away from those conversations?
I mean, the prices being 20 to 25% higher. Again, I like Gene, I like Dan. It just doesn't pass the common sense test. Again, I understand, when Tesla, announced the product and the pricing. By the way, I don't think they'll do that again, unless they're within maybe a year of launching, because it's really hard to understand what's going to happen from a commodity perspective or just globally, like what's going to happen when you got 4 years of separation. Now, that wasn't the plan when they unveiled the Cybertruck. I think it was only a plan of about 2 years. But I think they'll approach the pricing piece different. But the fact that knowing everything that we know to think that it should have been 20 to 25% lower. I mean, we looked at those comp sheet, Herbert. I mean, the Cybertruck's faster. It's got it's got equivalent towing capacity. Everything's kind of in line performance-wise or better than the competition. So I don't know why they think that, at launch, when the demand is the highest and totally unconstrained and supply is the lowest, that Tesla would lower the pricing 20 to 25%. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars. Why would Tesla flush that when they'll sell every one they could make? I think Tesla could have priced these things meaningfully higher and they would have sold everything, knowing the Tesla brand and the Tesla mode of incredibly fast iteration and the ability to take pricing down as they scale up EV. Notice the other products have been in market for a couple of years and they haven't really done anything meaningfully with their price. In fact, they've raised prices net when you look at what they said that they would launch product at. So I don't understand the feedback. I do think, though, from a financial perspective, there's this tug of like, is this going to be meaningful to the Tesla story? And yeah, it's got to get more than a few 100,000 units per year for it to be more meaningful. But it's going to be one of those things that brings it brings a new class of buyer into Tesla. And the new class of buyer has people in their families or in their circle that may not want a truck. They may need a sedan for whatever. And if the Cybertruck reduces a barrier for entry for people to go from ICE to EV, that's going to help expand TAM within itself. It's a hard thing to put a number on. But, in general, I think the analysts are being a little bit tough on the pricing for all the reasons I described. But I think they're being, pretty balanced in terms of its, financial meaning over the next couple of years.
Yeah. To be fair, they're referring to 2024, which is going to be small numbers. They didn't really say, I guess they kind of referred that they still think it's a niche product, 25 and onward, but clearly it's not going to be. So let's listen to Bradley Tusk of Tusk Ventures. He's got a much more higher view of what he sees Tesla's role is in the industry.
Do you have a take on what you've seen or read?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it is definitely, like everything he does, very cool, innovative, and a little weird. But as we've seen with Tesla, he kind of sets the bar in a certain way, and then the rest of the industry follows. And what most people may end up driving when it comes to an EV that's a truck probably won't look anything like this. But someone has to set the pace, and he's really good at doing it. And so, do I think I would get one? No, although my 14-year-old son has been lobbying me to do so.
Okay, and then this is Canaccord's George Gianarikas, and listen to what he says.
Didn't necessarily agree. Shares were down 2% or so after the launch, are fractionally lower today. My next guest is bullish on Tesla, though, although he warns the Cybertruck isn't everyone's cup of tea, and Rivian's R1T could even benefit. Joining us now for more is Canaccord Genuity analyst George Generikis. George, it's great to see you again. Welcome.
Nice to see you too. Thanks for having me on.
What were your reactions to the launch last night?
Look, the vehicle is sort of like the man behind it. It's polarizing. It's sort of an acquired taste, but it's hard to argue against its genius in its performance. It's an awesome vehicle, and the performance metrics were incredible. I mean, look, it beat a Porsche 911 off the line while actually carrying a Porsche 911. The turning radius, I haven't driven it, but I watched some reviews this morning were incredible. So it's just a car that's probably going to change the landscape of our roads. But I can tell you that I really like it. Leanne, who works on our team, doesn't like it. Pino likes it. My wife hates it. My kids are split. I have two daughters. One likes it, the other doesn't. So it's just like Elon Musk. I mean, some people really, really like it, and some people really, really don't like it, but it's hard to argue that it's an awesome car.
I liked Musk's line.
Yeah, so that's fine that people don't like it, right? But the segment is still pretty large. Your reaction to these two clips?
Yeah, I think it's fairly balanced. It's a polarizing product when it's put out in front of people. There's people that are going to love it. There's people that are going to hate it for some reason. And I think there's going to be people that are going to be on the edge of like, this is interesting. I need to hear more. And I think the reviews that came out over the weekend are, they were largely positive by a lot of people that are not fans of Tesla or even of EVs. They're more, your typical gear. Nothing wrong with this, by the way, but they're wedded to these typical ICE, super trucks or EVs or non-EVs and so forth. And that's converting those people too. So I think Tesla's done something here that's very similar to their other products, which are, there's this mystique of like, buying an EV and like, what's the ownership experience like? But then when you actually get into a Model 3 or a Model Y, or definitely an S or an X, it drives better than anything you would have ever owned at those price tiers or that category of crossover SUV. They drive, the driving experience is amazing. And it appears that with Cybertruck that they've taken that to a whole new level compared to other Teslas, but then definitely compared to other trucks. So I think this is one of those things where, first off, it's got like 10 million views, I think, within hours of these reviews coming out. So there's a lot of interest for Tesla and the Cybertruck online. There's tremendous interest. And I think when people are going to be going to show, it's going to be drawing, if there's that much interest online, it's going to be pulling people into the showrooms, and then people are going to want to test drive it. And I have the feeling when they test drive it and they see the turning radius, it's like a sedan. They see how quiet the ride is. They see the acceleration. They're going to plunk down money and buy it. So this is going to be different for Tesla, because Tesla's normally been a word of mouth story, and you're going to have this. I think you're going to have this mixture of word of mouth and this massive online presence of this vehicle that's already done or its first weekend of launch. So I'm excited. I think the community, the analyst community, are on. I think they're trying to get these really quick takes like right after the event. I think as things kind of like set in, things are becoming more and more apparent to me. And again, I was there. Am I bullish on Tesla? Of course, I'm bullish on Tesla, but I'm looking at it and from a pretty balanced perspective. I'm not saying they're going to build hundreds of thousands of these in the next year, but I think they're going to do more than the Adam Jonas number. And I think it's going to be more meaningful from a financial perspective, not only for the Cybertruck, but for other Tesla's lineup as well, as some of the analysts may not be seeing through that yet.
Yeah, and all the technology that's in the Cybertruck will make its way, and that's really the innovation. It's not just the how great it looks and how polarizing it looks, but the internal tech, that is no debate, is amazing in margins and features and all that. Wonderful. Thank you very much, Jeff. Follow him on Twitter, on X, at the Jeff Lutz. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.